Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Little, here today with another fun marginal made hand for PokerNews.com. I feel like the last few hands I've made for Poker News have been very marginal spots, and well, we have another one. Here we're facing a raise from a tight aggressive player, 300 big blinds deep early in a $2,000 buy-in live tournament. Call from the low jack seat. With Queen 10 of spades, I'm going to call virtually every time. If this was offsuit, I would be way more inclined to 3-bet or fold, but I can tell you I'd always fold in this scenario. I'm not doing a whole lot of 3-betting from out of position when we're playing 300 big blinds deep because, well, you don't want to play pots out of position when you're 300 big blinds deep, especially when they're big. So, in this spot, I am really not 3-bet bluffing all that often. So it seems like a very nice spot just to call and see a flop with the good suited hands. We get a pair plus a draw. And here is a spot where, first off, I'm never leading. The times you want to lead is when the board is good for your range. And that is never going to be the case on a high card board when you call from, well, the big blind for sure, and usually from the small blind. Not always, because like I said, your small blind calling range should be much stronger than a big blind calling range. But the times you want to lead are usually on the middle card boards and the low card boards because those don't connect with the pre-flop raisers range. However, think about pre-flop raisers, right? They literally always raise king, queen. So they have all those. They also raise aces and kings and queens and ace jack and ace 10. So the opponent has all the nut hands from the pre-flop razor shoes. And the low jack also has many of those hands. So you do not want to be leading into ranges that should be incredibly strong. So just check. Right here with bottom pair and a gut shot, if I faced a bet for for any amount, I guess I'm calling 1,000 or less in this scenario most of the time. I definitely don't like it. We're going to be behind a lot, but if we do get lucky to drill the king or the 10, we can be happy enough putting money in the pot. So I think we can call a bet in this scenario. If it goes bet raise, though, obviously we fold. You know, if it goes bet call, I think we should also probably fold because then we're going to be a little bit more dominated where maybe one of the opponents has a queen, so we're not getting full value when we get a king. Maybe someone already has 2 pair, in which case we're in bad shape. So I would fold if it goes bet call or bet raise. But against just one player, I would stick around. All right, turns a queen. So now we have 2 bad pair. King makes a straight. I am probably just going to be in check fold mode. There's no point in leading whatsoever again, because if I lead, a better 2 pair is not going to fold. Sets are not going to fold. And a king is not going to fold. And everything else is going to fold, right? So this is like the definition of a spot where you do not want to be betting. So it checks around to the tight aggressive player in the low jack seat who now bets 550. All right, so if the under the gun plus 1 player, the initial raiser, bet this turn, I would definitely fold. Because under the gun plus 1 is betting into 2 players who have effectively not acted yet, right? Like I'm going to be checking the turn with a lot of my range because, again, who has more kings in their range? It's going to be both of my opponents, right? So I want to be checking this turn every time. However, once that player checks under the gun plus 1, under the gun plus 1 probably doesn't have very many kings at all because he would have bet them. So, also if he did have a set on the flop or 2 pair on the flop, he would have bet those. So I'm really not worried about under the gun plus 1. The low jack now could obviously have the king and the sets and the 2 pair and all that, but 2 people have shown weakness twice on a very scary board. And this is where you have to get into your opponent's heads a little bit. You have to figure out, are they going to be the type of player who will aggressively take stabs when people show weakness? And to be fair, whenever your opponents check to you once and then check to you twice, it's starting to look like they don't have very good hands, right? Which is why it's important for you as a small blind to protect your range. Like I just told you here, if I had a king, I'm checking. So anyway, in this scenario, I think the default play is to just fold. The queen 10 is not particularly great. We lose to a lot. If the opponent does have a random hand like an ace, he may even bluff it on the river. Like say he has ace 4 and is betting it for fun. He may go ahead and bet again on the river. So I think this is still going to be a fold, especially given under the gun plus 1 could just have like ace king. Or I'm sorry, could have ace queen and still call. I like to call this time though, and I can already tell you the reason I would call in this spot is because I am relatively confident the low jack either just doesn't like his hand based on some live read, or because I think the low jack is the type of player who's going to be willing to bet at a pot once it checks multiple times. So I do like the call. River's a 3. I presume I'm check folding here again. But it goes check, check. And this time we just win. This may be surprising to a lot of people. Whenever they look at hands like this, or when I put them in scenarios like this, they just assume their opponent's always going to bet the river. And that's just not true. They're not. Also, they just presume their opponent always has a straight on the turn. And that's just not true. They don't, right? And, well, here's a good example of this. It is also worth mentioning we have a draw to the full house, which we'd be very happy to get. So even though we probably don't have the best hand on the turn, we're getting pot odds, right? We only need to realize 25% equity. And also, we had the draw to the full house, which does win sometimes. And don't forget, we do have the best hand every once in a while. And, well, this is one of those spots. I actually remember this hand because under the gun +1, he tanked for forever on the turn after it went bet call, and then he folded. And he said he had ace-10. So I don't know why he didn't bet ace-10 on the flop. That was a mistake. And then on the turn, when it goes bet call, I guess he should fold the ace-10. So we ended up getting pretty lucky that he didn't play the hand well. And to be fair, you're going to find in a lot of small and medium stakes tournaments, a lot of your profit comes from your opponents messing up. I have a student I'm thinking of off the top of my head who plays 1-3 no limit. And he sends me hands to review. And whenever he sends me these hands, like half the hands that he's just stacking people on, his opponents had either no business being in the pot to begin with, or they shouldn't have ran some ridiculous bluff, or they drastically overplayed a hand. Like they're just messing up left and right. And that's letting him win at like $60 an hour at 1-3 no limit consistently. And that kind of thing stops happening as you start moving to higher and higher stakes because people start to play more and more competently. And right here, under the gun +1 just bets the flop. Low jack probably folds whatever he has. Or if he does bet and low jack calls with like, I don't know, ace X or jack 8 or something, then I fold, right? That would have been out in hand. And under the gun +1 would have won. But instead, he messed it up and I was the beneficiary. Sometimes you're lucky.